There are sacrifices that no one sees, and those are the ones that define a person most completely. Not the sacrifices made on stages or in front of witnesses, not the ones that earn applause or acknowledgement or even a simple thank you, but the ones made in empty parking lots and quiet hallways and ordinary Tuesday mornings when the world is busy looking somewhere else and a person chooses, anyway, to be good. Joel Mercer had been making invisible sacrifices for 4 years. Since the morning his wife Claire walked out of their apartment in Columbus, Ohio, leaving behind a note on the kitchen counter and a 18-month-old son named Caleb who was currently asleep in his crib, unaware that the shape of his entire life had just been quietly rearranged. Joel had been 29 then. He had not planned for any of this, the single parenthood, the scaled-back ambitions, the constant arithmetic of a life where love and logistics were permanently tangled together. But he had looked at his son's sleeping face that morning, and the decision had made itself without requiring his permission. Caleb came first. Caleb came always. 4 years later, Caleb was 5, obsessed with dinosaurs and fire trucks and a stuffed elephant named Gerald that had to be present for all major life events including dinner. Joel was 33, working as a logistics coordinator for a mid-size shipping company that paid adequately and asked nothing of him that poetry would ever be written about. He was good at the job. He was good at most things he put his attention to. But for 4 years his attention had been divided, always divided, between whatever was in front of him and the boy at home, and that division had a cost that Joel paid quietly and without complaint because complaining felt like a betrayal of something sacred. He had applied for the senior operations director position at Vantage Logistics almost as an act of hope more than expectation. Vantage was the kind of company people in his field spent careers trying to get into, a Columbus-based firm with a national presence, known for promoting from within and treating its people with the rare, genuine respect that had apparently not yet become extinct in corporate America. The salary would have tripled his current income. The benefits package included childcare assistance. He had stayed up past midnight 3 nights in a row preparing for the interview, while Caleb slept down the hall with Gerald tucked under one arm. The interview was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Thursday. At 8:15, Joel was in his car in the parking garage beneath his apartment building, in his best suit, running through the mental notes he'd prepared, when he heard it, a sound so small against the concrete and fluorescent quiet of the garage that most people would have filtered it out entirely. A thin, high sound. Distress wearing the shape of a cough. He found her 2 rows over, half collapsed against a support pillar, a woman perhaps 65, well-dressed, her face the particular gray-white color that does not belong on living faces. She was conscious but barely, one hand pressed to her chest, her phone on the ground beside her where it had fallen. She looked up at him with eyes that were frightened and exhausted and still, somehow, composed in the way of someone who had spent a lifetime keeping themselves together. "My heart," she managed. "I've had episodes before. My medication is in my bag. I can't." Joel was already crouching. He found the bag, found the medication after 15 seconds of searching that felt considerably longer, helped her take it, and called 911 with the calm, focused efficiency of a man accustomed to solving problems under pressure. He stayed on the line with the dispatcher, kept his hand on her arm so she knew someone was present, talked to her steadily and quietly while they waited, telling her his name, asking hers, keeping her conscious and anchored in the way that the dispatcher instructed and that his own instincts confirmed. Her name was Eleanor. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. Joel rode with her because she had no one else available. Her phone, when she'd been able to unlock it, showed a dozen recent missed calls from a number labeled simply Rachel, but Eleanor had been unable to make the call herself and had asked Joel to try while the paramedics worked. Rachel didn't answer. He left a message with the hospital name, clear and specific, because details matter when someone is frightened and driving toward an emergency. He sat in the waiting area for an hour and 40 minutes. He did not make it to the interview. He called the Vantage Logistics office from the waiting room and explained, with the particular excruciating politeness of a person watching an opportunity close like a door in slow motion, that he had a family emergency and would need to reschedule. The woman on the phone was sympathetic and said she would pass the message along, and Joel thanked her and hung up and sat with the specific, heavy silence of a man who has just done the right thing at the wrong time. He stayed until a woman came rushing through the hospital entrance, mid-30s, dark-haired, still in her coat, her eyes scanning the waiting area with the wild focus of someone who had driven very fast from wherever she'd been. Joel stood, and she crossed the room to him. "You're the one who called," she said. It wasn't a question. "Joel Mercer. Your mom is stable. She's asking for you." The woman, Rachel, looked at him for a moment with an expression he couldn't fully read, and then she did something unexpected. She took both of his hands in hers, briefly, the way people do when words are temporarily unavailable, and then she went to find her mother. He left after that. There was nothing more to do, and Caleb needed to be picked up from preschool at noon. Life returned to its ordinary shape. He told his current employer he was staying. He deleted the Vantage Logistics confirmation email from his inbox because reading it felt like looking at a photograph of somewhere you would never go. He made Caleb's dinosaur-shaped pasta for dinner and listened to a detailed 20-minute report on everything Gerald had done that day and thought, not for the first time, that this small life was both less than he had imagined and more than he could have invented. 11 days later, his office phone rang. The man on the other end introduced himself as Richard Voss. The name registered slowly and then all at once, the way significant names do. Richard Voss, founder of Vantage Logistics, the person whose vision had built the company from a regional carrier to a national operation over 30 years. He was not someone who called logistics coordinators at mid-size shipping companies. "My wife Eleanor tells me you stayed with her until she was safe," Richard said. "That you missed something important to do it." Joel was quiet for a moment. "I couldn't leave her alone." "No," Richard said. "You couldn't. That's exactly the point." There was a brief pause. "The operations director position is still open. We'd like you to come in, not to interview. To discuss start dates and terms. If you're interested." Joel sat at his desk for a long time after the call ended. Long enough that his coworker Davis leaned over and asked if he was all right. He said yes, which was true, and also nowhere near sufficient to describe what was moving through him. He thought about the parking garage. About the small sound he almost didn't hear. About the 11 days of ordinary life that had passed between that moment and this one, during which he had not once regretted staying because regret had never really been available. It had never felt like a choice so much as a direction, the only direction his instincts knew. He thought about Caleb, who would have a father with better hours now, better benefits, a future with more room in it. He thought about Eleanor's hands folded in her lap against that concrete pillar, and how frightened she had looked, and how she had still tried to hold herself together, and how he had been grateful, genuinely, quietly grateful, to be the person who happened to be there. He called the sitter. He picked up Caleb early. He took him to the park and pushed him on the swings until the October light went golden and thin and his son's laughter rose into the cooling air like something released from a long captivity. Gerald came to the park too, tucked under Caleb's arm. He was present for the major life events. This was one.